When I was about 13, I lived in an apartment complex with my mom and older brother in Chicago. It's a very expensive city to live in, and with my mom working two jobs to support ourselves, it was a struggle. Those who live in Chicago will probably understand the expenses to live here, especially those in the city area. Anyway, it had been my birthday, and my mom had given me $50 to spend on whatever I wanted. A few blocks away from my apartment was a Walmart supercenter that had pretty much anything us kids were interested in. This was around the time where the new GTA game came out, so my brother and I drove to the store to see if they had any left. My brother had told me that I could go off alone, but to come to the front of the store after I got what I wanted. The second we walk into the Walmart, I instantly go to the game section and thankfully get my hands on the game I wanted. As I'm leaving the gaming aisle, I see a man I had never seen before turn the corner and wave at me. He wore a white t-shirt, torn cargo shorts, and had on a hat that said Nirvana, which for those of you who don't know is the name of a very popular rock band. Growing up, I was always taught to be respectful to others, so I gave him a friendly nod as a way of saying hi. Only then did I realize that doing that was a big mistake. He then approaches me while reaching out his hand for a handshake. Almost immediately, the horrid smell of vomit hit me like a brick, but I couldn't make it seem obvious I noticed. He then says in a raspy voice if I liked video games. With a slight smile, I tell him yes and try to make it seem like I was looking for another game. As an extra precaution, I also put on my AirPods, but before I could do that, he says that he has a son who also likes video games. I tell him that was cool and wished him a nice day and leave the aisle hoping he wouldn't follow me. I make my way over to the front when I look back to see him begin to follow me, but keeping a distance. I then walk a bit faster, and it was then where I had saw my brother waiting for me by the front where I told him to just go. At that point, the man had followed me to the front. However, when he saw my brother, he casually looked away and acted as if he were looking at the office supplies on the shelves. Long story short, we leave the store and get into the car to go home where my brother asks what was wrong in a very direct tone. I hesitate for a moment, gathering up the courage to say it when he looks out of the window and goes, "So, who's that?" I tell him that he had followed me throughout the store and was asking me weird questions. By this point, my brother knew what was going on. He put the car in reverse and drove out of the parking lot, but not before giving the man a dirty look as we passed him. While driving, he tells me to not tell Mom and that if anything happens that I should tell him. When we got home, none of us spoke to my mom about it as we knew we'd get into trouble if she had found out I spoke to him. Unfortunately, however, the story doesn't end there. About a week later on the last day of school, I had gone to the bus stop to wait for the bus. It was around 7 a.m., and I'm waiting for a good 20 minutes when I hear a strange noise from down the street. At the time, it was sort of foggy out, but as the noise got louder, I see up ahead a red pickup truck approach me. The truck slowly rolls up to me, and when I see the driver, I instantly got this sense of dread. In the driver's seat is the same man from Walmart wearing that all too familiar Nirvana hat. He rolls down his window, gives me a smile, and winks as he drove away. Thankfully, the bus had come soon after, and I couldn't be more happier to go to school. After that, I never saw him or his pickup truck again, and I've kept silent about it ever since. We have since moved from Chicago due to my mom getting a new job offer, but I'm just glad I never saw him again. So I've been working at Walmart for about 3 years now. It's not the best job, but it has decent pay and was enough to pay half the rent while my boyfriend paid the rest. I work and go to school full-time, so managing both my job and school was a hassle. One week, my managers, being the jerks that they were, gave me a week of closing shifts. This was really inconvenient as I had a 7:45 a.m. class on Wednesdays, but they didn't seem to care about that when I spoke to them. It was annoying to say the least, but I sucked it up and worked my shifts as scheduled. The night shifts usually consisted of us cleaning, putting things back on shelves, etc. Well, one night during that week, it was 10 minutes before we closed and the only ones in the store were me and my other coworker, Seth. Seth was counting up the registers while I was mopping the floors of all the aisles. At one point while mopping, I go down one of the aisles and see a man looking at the shelves of the arts and crafts section. This was odd as Seth and I did a sweep throughout the store to make sure everyone was gone and we didn't see this man anywhere. I wasn't sure what it was, but I started to get this weird energy off him, and not the good kind. I politely tell him that the store is closed and that he have to come back tomorrow. He looks at me and profusely apologizes, telling me that he just has to pick out one more thing. After all, we had closed just a few minutes ago, so I made an exception and told him to get whatever he needed but to make it quick. That being said, I finished cleaning and radio said that we still had one last customer in the store. He said that it would be no problem and that he'd ring him up. With that out of the way, I decided to go put the cleaning supplies away and took that time to use the restroom before I clocked out. Now, the restroom in the front has been out of order, which meant that I had to use the one in the back of the store. I go into the bathroom, take off my vest, and do my business. About 30 seconds later, I hear the door to the bathroom open and someone step inside. For some reason, I thought it was Seth telling me that he was leaving or something, and with that, I called out his name. However, I didn't hear a response back, and that's when I texted him asking if he were by the back of the store. He instantly responded, saying no and that he was still waiting for that other customer. That's when I look up and see an eye staring at me through the crack of the stall. It's safe to say I screamed the loudest I've ever had and pulled up my pants and basically rammed the door, pushing the man to the ground. I ran over to the front and told Seth everything and to call the police. Thankfully, the police station wasn't too far from here, so they were able to have an officer over within 2 minutes. Police had told us to get out of the store while they went inside, as they didn't know if he was armed. Turns out, he actually had a 4-inch hunting knife he had on him from our outdoors section. He had it in his back pocket, and God only knows what he was gonna do with it. He was arrested, of course, and has actually done similar things before. He had been put in jail before, but was released for good behavior. This time, I'm not sure as to how long he was gonna be in jail for, but I hope it's a while, as that was probably the scariest thing to ever happen to me. If something feels off or wrong about something, I strongly suggest that you always trust your gut. It may just save your life. This story is told in the perspective of a female. This happened to me and my friend about 5 years ago when we were both 11 years old. My friend, who I'll call Megan, had been over at my house to work on our science project for school. It was basically this required project to create a model of our solar system and explain the details. At one point during the project, my mom had told us that we would have to finish it later as we had to run an errand at Walmart. She said that she didn't like us staying home alone as she thought we were too young. Some may argue that 11 is the perfect age to stay home alone, but my mother has always been overprotective of me. Fortunately, the Walmart we had to go to was just up the street, so it wouldn't be a big deal. Upon arriving to the Walmart, I asked my mom if Megan and I can go into the toy aisle. Surprisingly, she gave the okay and even handed us a $20 bill to buy whatever we wanted as long as we stuck together. We happily make our way over to the toy aisle, and I look for a toy each of us would enjoy. As we're looking, we see a store employee come up to us where he asks us if we needed help. I ask him if he had any sort of puzzles around, and he points to the direction of the other aisle, indicating that's where they were. I give him a friendly thanks, and we go to the aisle and look through the puzzles. About 10 seconds go by, and we then see him enter the aisle where he bends down and casually puts his hand on my shoulder and asks, "So, did you girls find what you were looking for?" I thought that it was a little strange he touched me, but in my 11-year-old state, I didn't feel threatened. In fact, I had thought it was him trying to be friendly or give us more of his help. It was kind of like when a best friend would put your hand on you if you were having a bad day or trying to cheer you up. I tell him that we were fine and that we were just looking, but thanked him for his help. He then said it was no problem and to not hesitate to ask him if we needed anything else. As he said this, he begins to slowly rub my back before getting up and leaving to another aisle. At this point, I was a little creeped out, as well as Megan, and told her that we should just leave. That's exactly what we did, and we make our way over to the line where my mom had been checking out. As we're waiting in the checkout line, we see that employee walk past us, giving us a smile and even a gentle wave. However, he did this repeatedly, as if he wanted to get our attention. The line thankfully moved forward, and we bought our things and left the store to go home. About a week later, during lunch at school, I was looking through my Instagram, where I mainly posted pictures of my dog, when I see a few comments from a user I didn't recognize. After further searching the comments, I had gone to the account and saw posts of, you guessed it, that same Walmart employee. I have no idea how he found my Instagram, as I keep it private and don't let anyone follow me unless I knew them. As a matter of fact, I don't even remember accepting his request or if he even requested to follow me in the first place. I blocked the account and thankfully never heard from him again.